Welcome back, guys. Zach here, and I am Barnbound. Today I'll be reading Hyperion by John Keats. There are several books to this series. I will not read them video to video, but I will record them all over the next several dozen. So enjoy. Today it is Hyperion, Fragment, Book 1 by John Keats. Deep in the shady sadness of a vale, far sunken from the healthy breath of morn, far from the fiery noon and eve's one star, sat grey-haired Saturn, quiet as a stone. Still as the silence round about his lair, forest on forest hung about his head, like cloud on cloud. No stir of air was there, not so much life as on a summer's day. Robs not one light seed from the feathered grass, but where the dead leaf fell, there did it rest. A stream went voiceless by, still deadened more, by reason of his fallen divinity, spreading a shade. The naiad mid her reeds pressed her cold finger closer to her lips. Along the margin sand, large footmarks went, no further than to where his feet had strayed and slept there since. Upon the sodden ground, his old right hand lay nevertheless, listless, dead, unsceptered, and his realmless eyes were closed, while his bowed head seemed listening to the earth, his ancient mother, for some comfort yet. It seemed no force could wake him from his place, but there came one who with a kindred hand touched his white shoulders, after bending low with reverence, though to one who knew it not, she was a goddess of the infant world. By her, in stature, the tall Amazon had stood a pygmy's height. She would have ta'en Achilles by the hair and bent his neck, or with her finger stayed Ixion's wheel. Her face was large as that of Memphian's sphinx, pedestaled haply in a palace vault, when sages looked to Egypt for their lore. But oh, how unlike marble was that face, how beautiful, if sorrow had not made sorrow more beautiful than beauty itself. There was a listening fear in her regard, as if calamity had but begun, as if the vanward clouds of evil days had spent their malice, and the sun was with its stored thunder labouring up. One hand she pressed upon that aching spot where beats the human heart, as if just there. Though an immortal, she felt cruel pain. The other upon Saturn's bended neck she laid, and to the level of his ear, leaning with parted lips, some words she spake, in solemn tenor and deep organ tone. Some morning words which in our feeble tongue would come in these like accents. Oh, how frail to that large utterance of the early god. Saturn, look up, though wherefore, poor old king, I have no comfort for thee, no, not one, I cannot say. Oh, wherefore sleepest thou? For heaven is parted from thee, and the earth knows thee not, thus afflicted for a god, and ocean too, with all its solemn noise, has from thy sceptre passed, and all the air is emptied of thine hoary majesty. Thy thunder, conscious of the new command, rumbles reluctant o'er our fallen house, and thy sharp lightning in unpractised hands scorches and burns our once serene domain. O aching time, O moments big as years, all as ye pass swell out the monstrous truth, and press it so upon our weary griefs, that belief that unbelief has not a space to breathe. Saturn, sleep on. O thoughtless, why did I thus violate thy slumberous solitude? Why should I ope thy melancholy eyes? Saturn, sleep on, while at thy feet I weep. As when, upon a tranced summer night, those green-robed senators of mighty woods, tall oaks, branch charmed by the earnest stars, dream, and so dream all night without a stir, save from one gradual, solitary gust, which comes upon the silence and dies off, as if the ebbing air had but one wave. So came these words and went, the while in tears she touched her fair large forehead to the ground, just where her falling hair might be outspread, a soft and silken mat for Saturn's feet. One moon, with alteration slow, had shed her silver seasons four upon the night, and still these two were postured motionless, like natural sculpture in cathedral cavern, the frozen god still couchant on the earth, and the sad goddess weeping at his feet, until at length old Saturn lifted up his faded eyes, and saw his kingdom gone, and all the gloom and sorrow of the place, and that fair kneeling goddess, and then spake, as with a palsied tongue, and while his beard shook horrid with such aspen malady, O tender spouse of gold Hyperion, thee, I feel thee ere I see thy face. Look up, and let me see our doom in it. Look up, and tell me if this feeble shape is Saturn's. Tell me, if thou hearest the voice of Saturn, tell me, if this wrinkling brow, naked and bare of its great diadem, appears like the front of Saturn, who had power to make me desolate. Whence came the strength? How was it nurtured to such a bursting forth, while fate seemed strangled in my nervous grasp? But it is so, and I am smothered up, and buried from all godlike exercise, of influence benign on planets pale, of admonitions to the wind and seas, of peaceful sway above men's harvesting, and all those acts which deity doth ease its heart in love. Doth ease its heart of love in. I am gone, away from my own bosom I have left my strong identity, my real self, somewhere between the throne and where I sit here on this spot of earth. Search, Thea, search. Open thine eyes etern, and sphere them round upon all space, space dark and lorn of light, space regent with life air and barren void. Space is afire, and all the yawn of hell. Search, Thea, search, and tell me if thou seest a certain shape or shadow, making way with wings or chariot fierce to repossess a heaven he lost erewhile. It must be of ripe progress. Saturn must be king. There must be a golden victory. There must be gods thrown down, and trumpets blown of triumph come, and hymns of festival. Upon the gold clouds metropolitan, voices of soft proclaim, silver stir, of strings and hollow shells, and there shall be beautiful things made new. For the surprise of the sky children, I will give command. Thea, 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 where is Saturn? This passion lifted him upon his feet, and made his hands to struggle in the air, his druid locks to shake and ooze with sweat, his eyes to fever out, his voice to cease. He stood and heard not Thea's sobbing deep. A little time, and then again he snatched utterance thus. But cannot I create? Cannot I form? Cannot I fashion forth another world, another universe, to overbear and crumble this to naught? Where is another chaos? Where? That word found way unto Olympus had made quake the rebel three. Thea was startled up, and in her bearing was a sort of hope. And thus she quick-voiced spake, yet full of awe. This cheers our fallen house. Come to our friends. O Saturn, come away and give them heart. I know the covert, for thence came I hither. Thus brief, then with beseeching eyes she went, with backward footing through the shade of space he followed, and she turned to lead the way through aged boughs that yielded like the mist which eagles cleave, up mounting from their nest. Meanwhile in other realms big tears were shed, more sorrow like to this, and such like woe, too huge for mortal tongue or pen of scribe. The Titans fierce, self-hid or prisoned brown, groaned for the old allegiance once more, and listened in sharp pain for Saturn's voice. But one of the whole mammoth brood still kept his sovereignty and rule and majesty. Blazing Hyperion on his orbed fire still sat, still snuffed the incense, teeming up from man to the sun's god, yet unsecure. For as among us mortals omens drear and fright and perplex, so also shuddered he. Not a dog's howl or gloom bird's hated speech, all the familiar visiting of one upon the first toll of his passing veil, or prophesying of the midnight lamp. But horrors portioned to a giant nerve, oft made Hyperion ache, his palace bright, bastioned with pyramids of glowing gold, and touched with shade of bronzed obelisks, glared a blood red through all its 1,000 courts, arches, domes, and fiery galleries, and all its curtains of Aurorian clouds flushed angrily, while sometimes eagles' wings, unseen before by gods or wandering men, darkened the place, and neighing steeds were heard, not heard before by gods or wandering men, also when he would taste the spicy wreaths of incense, breathed aloft with sacred hills instead of sweets. His ample palate took savour of poisonous brass and metal. And so, when harboured in the sleepy rest, after the full completion of her day, for rest divine upon exhaled couch, and slumber in the arms of melody, he packed away the pleasant hours of ease, with stride colossal, on from hall to hall, while far within each aisle and deep recess his winged minions in close clusters stood, amazed and full of fear, like anxious men who on wide plains gather in panting troops, when earthquakes jar their battlements and towers. Even now, while Saturn, roused from icy trance, went step for step with Thea through the woods, Hyperion, leaving twilight in the rear, came slope upon the threshold of the west. Then, as was wont, his palace door flew ope, in smoothest silence, save what solemn tubes, blown by the serious zephyrs, gave of sweet and wandering sounds, slow-breathed melodies, and like a rose in vermeil tint and shape, in fragrance soft and coolness to the eye, that inlet to severe magnificence stood full-blown for the god to enter in. He entered, but he entered full of wrath. His flaming robe streamed out beyond his heels, and gave a roar as if of earthly fire, that scarred away the meek ethereal hours, and made their dove wings tremble. On he flared, from stately nave to nave, from vault to vault, through bowers of fragment and unwreathed light, and diamond-paved lustrous long arcades, until he reached the great main cupola. There, standing fierce beneath, he stamped his foot, and from the basement deep to the high towers jarred his own golden region, and before the quavering thunder thereupon had ceased, his voice leapt out, despite of godlike curb, to this result: "O dreams of day and night, O monstrous forms, O effigies of pain, O spectres busy in a cold, cold gloom, O lank-eared phantoms of black-weeded pools, why do I know ye? Why have I seen ye? Why is my eternal essence thus distraught, to see and to behold these horrors new? Saturn has fallen. Am I too to fall? Am I to leave this haven of my rest, this cradle of my glory, this soft clime, this calm luxuriance of blissful light, these crystalline pavilions and pure fanes of all my lucent empire? It is left deserted, void, nor any haunt of mine. The blaze, the splendor, and the symmetry I cannot see, but darkness, death, and darkness, even here to my center of repose. The shady visions came to domineer, insult and blind, and stifle up my pomp. Fall! No, by Tellus and her briny robes, over the fiery frontier of my realms, I will advance. A terrible right arm shall scare that infant thunderer, rebel Jove, and bid old Saturn take his throne again. He spake, then ceased, the while a heavier threat held a struggle with his throat, but came not forth. For as in theatres of crowded men, hubbub increased, more they called out, hush. So at Hyperion's words the phantoms pale bestirred themselves, thrice horrible and cold, and from the mirrored level where he stood a mist arose, as from a scummy marsh. At this, through all his bulk and agony, crept gradual but the feet unto the crown, like a lithe serpent, vast and muscular, making slow way, with head and neck convulsed, far over, from overstrained might. Released, he fled to the eastern gates, and full 6 dewy hours before the dawn, in season dew should blush, he breathed fierce breath against the sleepy portals, cleared them of heavy vapors, burst them wide suddenly on the ocean's chilly stream. The planet orb of fire where he rode. The planet orb of fire where he rode, each day from east to west the heavens through, spun the sable curtaining of clouds, not therefore veiled quite, blindfold and hid, but ever and anon the glancing spheres, circles and arcs, broad-belting culture, glowed through and wrought upon the muffling dark, sweet-shaped lightnings from the nadir deep up to the zenith, hieroglyphics old, which sages and keen-eyed astrologers, then living on the earth with laboring thought, won from the gaze of many centuries, now lost save what we find on remnants huge, of stone, or marble swart there in Portugal, their wisdom long since fled. 2 wings this orb possessed for glory, 2 fair argent rings. Ever exalted at the gods' approach, and now from forth the gloom their plumes immense rose, one by one, till all outspread were, while still the dazzling globe maintained eclipse, awaiting for Hyperion's command. Fain would he have commanded, fain took the throne, and bid the day begin, if but for change he might not. No, though primeval god, the sacred seasons might not be disturbed. Therefore the operations of the dawn stayed in their birth, even as here 'tis told. Those silver wings expanded sistily, eager to sail their orb. The porches wide opened upon the dusk domains of night, and the bright Titan, frenzied with new woes, unused to bend by hard compulsion, bent his spirit to the sorrow of the time, and all along a dismal rack of clouds, upon the boundaries of day and night, he stretched himself in grief and radiance faint. There as he lay, the heaven with its stars looked down on him with pity. The voice of Coelus from the universal space thus whispered low and solemn in his ear. Oh, brightest of my children dear, earth-born and sky-endangered, son of mysteries, all unrevealed, even to the powers which met at thy creating, at whose joys and palpitations sweet and pleasure sought. I, Coelus, wonder how they came and whence, that the fruits thereof what shapes they may be, distinct and visible, symbols divine, manifestations of that beauteous life, diffused unseen throughout eternal space. Of these new-formed art thou, O brightest child, of these thy brethren and the goddesses. There is sad feud among ye, and the rebellion of son against his sire. I saw him fall, I saw my firstborn tumbled from his throne. To me his arms were spread, to me his voice found way from forth the thunders round his head. Pale walks I, and in vapours hid my face. Art thou, too, near such doom? Vague fear there is, for I have seen my sons most unlike gods, divine yet ye were created, and divine in sad demeanour, solemn, undisturbed, unruffled. Like high gods ye lived and ruled. Now I behold in you fear, hope, and wrath, actions of rage and passion, even as I see them on the mortal world beneath. In men who die, this is the grief, O son, sad sign of ruin, sudden dismay and fall. Yet do thou strive, as thou art capable, as thou canst move about, an evident God, and canst oppose to each malignant hour ethereal presence. I am but a voice, my life is but the life of winds and tides. No more than winds and tides can I avail, but thou canst. Be thou therefore in the van of circumstance. Yea, seize the arrow's barb before the tense string murmur. To the earth, for there thou wilt find Saturn and his woes. Meantime, I will keep watch on thy bright sun, and of thy seasons be a careful nurse. Here, half this region whisper had come down. Hyperion arose, and on the stars lifted his curved lids, and kept them wide until it ceased. And still he kept them wide, and still they were the same bright, patient stars. Then with a slow incline of his broad breast, like to a diver in the pearly seas, forward he stooped over the airy shore, and plunged, all noiseless, into the deep night. The end. That was Book 1 of Hyperion. Book 2, I will read soon. That was pretty long, but that was fun. And my throat's a bit sore now. Anyway, I will continue that soon. Thank you for watching if you held out this long, and I will talk to you soon.